Aloha guys, Dr. Tom is coming back at you again. We're going to continue with our fascinating discussion on the human immune system. We stopped right here, second line of defense, inflammation. Known since ancient times, the Greeks and Romans talked about it. Redness, heat, swelling, and pain. It helps guys, but also can get carried away and has to be controlled a lot too. This is the way I've always looked at it. Okay, fever, second line defense. The medical term for fever is pyrexia. Phagocytosis release pyrogens, which cause the fever to go up. Pyrogens reset body temperature through the hypothalamus. Body temperature rises. Antipyretics can lower temperature, like Tylenol, Advil, Motrin. Tylenol particularly is known as a fever reducer. As long as it's not too high, though, guys, you want to leave it alone. It helps. Of course, it can. If it gets up too high, it can be a real problem. Protective proteins, interferons, or cytokines secreted by cells infected by a virus. The important thing here, remember, is that interferons defend against viruses, because antibodies are useless against viruses, guys. Interferons protect other cells from viral replication and activate NK cells, natural killers, and macrophages. Interleukins are cytokines, and they play a variety of roles in immune function, ranging from inflammation, immune cell maturation, and activation. Bacterial infections, guys, are real serious, but we've got a lot of effective antibiotics. Of course, they've been overutilized, but the viral problems can be a real challenge, because there are interferons. There are also medical interferons, like medicine interferons, that can be given too. Complement proteins assist white blood cells to destroy pathogens. All of this stuff, guys, is really complex. Stick with what they've got here. Try to remember the main terms enough to get through the tests, because it's quite complicated. I would have to research it more and refresh my memory to go into any more detail. Okay, natural killer cells are lymphocytes that act non-specifically, effective against many microbes and certain cancer cells. The theory is we develop cancers regularly in our body, and these NK cells detect them as being abnormal and zap them. So if that's the case, and I very much think it is, then we could say that cancer is a disease of immunodeficiency. And that's what I've thought for about 45 years now. And I think mainstream science and medicine agree. Third line of defense, specific immunity. Lymphocytes, again, we said there are T cells that are trained by the thymus, and B cells which make antibodies. Antibodies, guys, are like flags, that you flag the antigen, which the bacteria or virus or whatever it is, and flags it, and that sets it up to be destroyed. Macrophages help activate T and B cells. Macrophages are Pac-Man. Okay, antigens can be anything that stimulates the loose definitions, anything that stimulates the formation of antibodies. For example, if you got type A blood, you have type A antigens, and that triggers antibodies to be formed. But we usually think of them, for example, the COVID-19 virus is an antigen when it gets inside you, and it stimulates the formation of these antibodies. It can be found on a cell or the substance's surface. Generally are large molecules. Most are proteins, but a few are polysaccharides and lipids. T lymphocyte matured with thymosins from a thymus gland. See what did I tell you? B lymphocytes, although both come from stem cells in the bone marrow. See, they differ in the development and function. B lymphocytes are antibodies, make antibodies. Here it shows them. Again, even though it made it sound, though, guys, that these aren't made in the that they are made in the lymphoid tissue. No, they all come from the bone marrow, the red bone marrow. Cell-mediated immunity. T-cell function, cell-mediated T-cell activation, macrophage ingests antigen presentation, clone produced, killer T-cells, helper T-cells, suppressor T-cells, memory T-cells. Yes, there are several different kinds of. The AIDS virus, for example, I believe causes there to be, I believe it's a suppressor, I might be wrong there, or helper, causes there to be a slightly lower percentage of that particular kind of T cell, and that's enough to be fatal over time without treatment. Okay, antigen, just a general pathogen, is gobbled up by a macrophage, and it in turn secretes substances that activate these various T cells. Killer T cell kills antigens. Helper T cell stimulates T and B cells. I think it's the helper that is affected by the AIDS virus. Suppressor T cells inhibit T and B cells. Why? You have to keep it under control, guys. You can't have it too. Autoimmune diseases, the immune system is attacking its own tissue, like type 1 diabetes or lupus. Memory T cells remembers the antigen for future encounters. So what do these vaccines do? Well, they make these things, they present enough of an antigen, like a portion of it, like the DNA or RNA of the COVID virus. It doesn't put the whole virus in there. And it's enough to trigger the production of these, and then if you get exposed to it, it destroys it. No, they're not putting chips in them, and no, they're not using dead babies' body parts in them, and what else? No, they're not injecting you with the actual virus. No, they don't have to do any of those things. That's all stupid propaganda. Now, guys, you might know by my writing and all, I'm critical of science and medicine, and I've researched paranormal and psychic and spiritual things for many years and written on them. But I also recognize the professionals, the pros, know what they're talking about, guys. You need to keep that in mind. Antibody-mediated immunity, B cell function. T cells attack, B cells make antibodies. Macrophages, the clones form, memory cells, plasma cells, memory B cells. Both of them started off with being gobbled up. Antibodies. Destroy antigens directly and indirectly. Antigen stimulates formation of antibodies. Let's just say it's the COVID virus. Antibodies secreted by B cells, also called immunoglobulins. Antigen-antibody interaction results in agglutination. They stick together, which makes them good targets to be destroyed. Important immunoglobulins, these are ones that we have general in our body all the time. IgG fights bacteria, virus, toxin. IgA found in breast milk, tears, gastric juices. IgM, ABO blood type compatibility. IgE, allergies, parasitic infections, hypersensitivity reaction. These immunoglobulins we have them all the time. And then we build specific antibodies for specific reasons. Why is the secondary response stronger than the primary? Here's the first exposure. Well, I would say it's because it's had time to make all these things, guys. Types of immunity: genetic, inborn, species specific. It says feline leukemia. Acquired: how did you get it? Naturally, biologically derived, or artificially through man-made? So in other words, guys, you can catch the COVID virus, in which case you might be very sick and you might die, or you can get a vaccine, and both of them do basically the same thing. Now, I know it's in vogue now to be anti-vaxxer because some of these Hollywood idiots are. And you gotta read the information and find out, guys, for yourself. You can't go by the nonsense out there. Now, do they get a little carried away with it sometimes? Too many vaccines? Yeah, I think they do, but naturally acquired immunity: active, you exposed to antigen, you produce antibodies. Okay. You catch chicken pox. Pass to someone else, makes antibodies from your mother. Well, at birth, you have quite a bit of, and also, well, I don't want to get into that. The first breast milk is colostrum, and it builds up the kid's immune system. Artificially acquired immunity: active, vaccines, toxoids. Is for bacterial. Passive, immunoglobulins, which your body makes itself. Allergic reaction delay, let's say, occurs about or within 48 hours. Usual cause of repeated exposure of skin to irritants like poison ivy. Activates T cells, causing skin eruptions and inflammation. Contact dermatitis. Immediate hypersensitivity, anaphylaxis. Anaphylaxis is a type of shock, guys, and it's real serious. If you've heard of somebody being stung by a bee and they died from it, they unfortunately had a very serious anaphylactic reaction to it. Allergic activates a B cell. Activated B cell forms a clone of antibody secreting plasma cells. Plasma cells secrete large amounts of IgE. The Ig antibodies bind to the mast cells in body tissue, releasing histamine. More of the allergen invades the body. I'm sure it can be treated if you get right to it, but anaphylactic shock is quite serious. There's different kinds of shock. Immediate hypersensitivity reactions, B venom, Ig. Okay, this is an example of the one with a bee sting. Other immunological responses: autoimmune diseases, developing response to self-attack or autoimmunity. Rheumatoid arthritis, type 1 diabetes, multiple sclerosis, psoriasis, the skin, lupus, Graves' disease of the thyroid, scleroderma. These are all well-known autoimmune. And it's always a problem, guys, because there are plenty of drugs that they can give to suppress the immune system. But if you do that, then you open up a whole nother possibility of cancers and infections and stuff you can catch because you have a weakened immune system. But if you don't treat these things can cause you great problems. Organ rejection. Of course, if you get like a kidney transplant or something, you have to be given very strong drugs for the rest of your life to keep you from rejecting that organ because it recognizes it as foreign, which of course it is. Organ rejection. Recipient's immune system recognizes donated organ as foreign, mounts immune attack against it. Treatment is immunosuppressive agents like prednisone and azathioprine, which I'm not familiar with. All right. Guys, we hit some of this kind of fast, but the good thing about a video like this is you can always play it back and listen to it. You can stop it and listen to it 3 or 4 times if I talked kind of quickly, which if you were in class you couldn't do unless you were taping it. Oh, those poor individuals. We went too far. We still got a couple of minutes here. To me, the learning about the T cells is a little bit complicated, and the protein like complements and cytokines, they have what they call a cytokine storm when there could be a massive production of these things and it goes too far and is detrimental to the patient. It can be fatal. All that kind of thing is important, and I know it's a little confusing about specific immunity and non-specific and natural immunity and acquired immunity. Remember, there are 5 white blood cells, and those play a big role in all this. But these T lymphocytes particularly play an important role. Those immunoglobulins, which we already have. And then the B cells can produce antibodies for specific things, and in fact do. Play a real important role. The antibodies themselves can kill it, but it also flags it for destruction. And then from that point on, let's say you caught chicken pox when you were a kid, like I did. Now they have vaccines, but back then I don't think they just got sick. Same with the measles. Measles, I can recall, I was pretty sick with that. Chicken pox, you got like pox on your skin, but you're up there jumping around playing and all. Mid-afternoon, you might have to lay down for a while. But you get lifelong immunity to those things because the antibodies that form from you having these diseases, for whatever reason, which is good, stay with you from that point onward. Then if you had chicken pox as a kid, when you get old, you can develop shingles, which is the herpes zoster. It can do the same thing. Non-specific. Things like the stomach, the acid in our stomach, guys, is real important. Has to be there. Tears have lysozymes in them. I'm still curious. NK cells are another type of lymphocyte, as we said. Why they consider them non-specific? Because they certainly don't just kill off everything. They're highly specific. So I'd have to read into that a little more. Inflammation is real important, but it often gets carried away and crosses the line and starts being detrimental to healing. That's why it's so important, like with musculoskeletal injuries, to wrap them and ice them and prop them up and all. Fever is real important. A slight fever, you shouldn't be in such, like with your kid or yourself, a hurry to do away with it. But if it's severe. Okay, we're running out of time. This finishes stuff for week 2. Dr. Thomas signing off.